Now we have a wonderful guest that you're going to enjoy. Her name is Jesalyn May Harper, and she's an author. And I mean, she's an author. Nice to meet you, Jesalyn.
Nice to meet you.
Tell me about how you got started writing.
Well, I've actually been a storyteller from a very young age. I've always enjoyed doing what I could. In grammar school, I wrote a couple of poems, and they won awards and were published.
Wow.
And then when I went into high school, I started really studying art literature, world literature, American literature, and I took a creative writing class.
Great.
But it wasn't until a couple of years later that I actually started working on my first book, which is Fabled Desires. So I kind of jumped straight into writing. A lot of people start with short stories and getting them published, or they write articles for magazines. And I had no experience with that. I went straight into the deep end and wrote a novel.
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? So what made you pick the subject of your first novel?
I actually enjoy the urban fantasy genre, which is fantasy in modern day time. I personally, as a reader, enjoy that. But I also travel a lot, and I've been exposed to so many different cultures that I've fallen in love with mythologies, ancient and modern.
Great.
So I've really studied them. When I was in the 6th grade, I was telling people I wanted to be an Egyptianologist. So unique child from the beginning. So when I was reading the urban fantasies, a lot of them were the fairy tales in modern day time. I decided I wanted to do the actual mythologies, the ancient gods, the ancient heroes in modern day time.
Wow.
And that's what started it. It spurred me into it.
And that sounds like a lot of research, right?
Yes, I was kind of lucky being a fan of the ancient mythologies because I had them in my head already.
Oh,
But
great.
for some of them, I love them so much, I wanted to remain true to the storylines. So I made sure that if something was going on in my book that I refreshed my mind. And with my new book coming out, I actually am learning about new gods. So it's actually expanding me in a way.
Wow. How many books now do you have?
Right now I have Fabled Desires released, which is the first book of the Fabled series, which is an urban fantasy with the ancient mythologies. It's about a woman who has grown up an orphan and discovers she's descendant from Norse gods and has special gifts. Yes, and she gets thrown into a world where there's a war going on, where a lot of the ancient gods want to return to their glory and rule over humanity. And the other ones want to remain anonymous and just live their existence. And she's caught right in the middle of that. Now I'm working on the sequel, which we'll be releasing this year, which is Fabled Deceptions. And it's a continuation of her going through this war and trying to figure out how to find a happy medium, pretty much, and end the war. Because the war is prophesized to end as Ragnarok, which is the Norse mythology of the end of days. And in the Norse mythology of Ragnarok, her entire family is killed off. So she is personally trying to save her family through this end of days. And in Fabled Deceptions, you start to not only meet the Norse family, you meet the Greeks, the Egyptians.
Wow.
We have a voodoo goddess that makes an appearance. So there's a lot going on. It's a fun read.
Oh, I love mythology and history.
Yes.
I just get really entranced in it. So I'm sure that I'm gonna read this one for sure.
Definitely.
But then the second one.
So the second one...
Does she live through the second one? Are you going to have another one?
Yes, I actually am lined up for 4 books
Oh.
at this point of time. There might be a 5th. I haven't gotten that far yet. You have to stay tuned for that. I've had a lot of people, though, really, really enjoy the book. And they're just dying of anticipation for the sequel. And then even then they're like, well, what's going to happen in the 3rd one? So it's been building. There's a lot of suspense because of the coming final battle and everything. So I have my Fabled Desires, the Fabled series, and then I also do children's books.
Fantastic. What do you do in that? What have you done?
Now, my children's books are getting to release this year as well. I have a bunch of releases coming up for 2016.
Oh, great.
Yes.
It's your year.
The most current one that we'll be releasing is called Leo's Tiger, which was actually co-written with my son Jared, my 4-year-old son. He helped inspire Mommy for it.
Oh, wow.
And it's about a little boy who has a little bit of a wild imagination while he's playing. And one day he discovers a tiger in his backyard. So it's kind of adventure, a lot of fun. I think a lot of kids will be really engaged. But when I write my children's books, I look at it not only as a child needs to be engaged, parents need to enjoy it too.
Oh, sure, because they have to read it.
Yes, they're the ones reading it. They're the ones that are buying it. So a lot of my children's books that I write are humorous to adults too. And that's Leo's Tiger. There's a lot of adult humor that is in the storyline as well. So I try to keep parents engaged.
What made you choose a tiger?
You know, my son chose the tiger. That was his inspiration. Yeah, we have this game we play called Story Time, and my son is very creative like myself, and I try to nurture that in him.
Good.
So I'll say, well, tell me a story. And it always starts off as once upon a time, and then he'll start in, and then Mommy will take over, and then he'll go, and we go back and forth.
Great.
And one day we were telling the story about this little boy finding a tiger in his backyard, and it was so funny. I was cracking up laughing, and I thought, this really needs to be made into a book. And I asked him, do you want it to be made into a book? He says, yeah, I want to be a writer like you, Mommy. So I was like, okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so he's excited about the book coming out. We're just finishing up on the illustrations. So I would tell people to start looking for it in about 3 to 4 months. If they follow me on my website, I have a website and a Facebook and Twitter account.
You want to tell them the website?
Absolutely. It's JesalynMayHarper.com. And then my Facebook is Facebook.com/JesalynMayHarper. And my Twitter is JesalynMHarper.
Well, that should be fairly easy for people to remember.
Yes, very unique name. But I am constantly posting release dates, book signings. I'm an artist, so anytime I'm in a gallery, I post. So I try to keep my fans in the loop as much as possible.
That's a great idea. That
Yes.
really is good, yes.
Yes.
And you do art too?
Yes, I paint. I actually do bone sculptures and paint, and I do photography and I model as well.
Oh my goodness.
I
that's
define
fantastic.
myself as an artist. I do writing, painting, photography, modeling, and I do martial arts as well. So if it has art in it, I'm probably involved.
Well, I'm telling you, you're fantastic, and it was wonderful having you here. And I'm going to keep my eyes out for that book.
Absolutely.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be back next week. So tune in.